Hey, it's good to see you today. We're here for the Day After podcast. We're with Tom Burns with Redeemed Idiot. My name is Philip Thomas, pastor of Journey Church here in Elgin. And on our Day After podcast, we look back at the sermon from yesterday. That's our goal, is that it's always the sermon from yesterday. But we're continuing going through Nehemiah. So Nehemiah chapter 5. So we talked about that. Also, in case you have been under a rock, there were some big events that happened over this weekend, and we engaged in military action against Iran, which was definitely a big news story, and a lot of people talking about that. So we addressed that a little bit. But what were your thoughts? Anything that jumped out, or what rabbit holes do we want to go down?
Well, there could be all kinds of rabbit holes.
Mm-hmm.
You started out, and you before you got into Nehemiah, you were kind of went down theologies, and like you just mentioned, things that are going on in Iran right now, or what happened in Iran. And I mean, at first, I'm like, where's he going with this with Nehemiah? And then, you started fleshing out. Then you read, I don't remember, probably 29 verses or so.
Yeah, I read the whole chapter.
Yeah, the whole chapter.
Chapter 5. Yeah.
And so when you started to read it now, like, okay, understanding Nehemiah's position, what he was saying, basically what he was saying was actually kind of a big point to it. And then you came back to what you started with, and then showing, I shouldn't say Nehemiah was in the same position, but the what's the word I'm looking for? The situation was similar, I guess you can say.
Yes.
He was in the position that we're facing today.
Yeah.
I guess the best way to put it. And then you rounded out with the very last verse of it.
Yeah.
If you want to read that.
Which is Nehemiah saying, and this is a prayer that Nehemiah is talking to God, says, "Remember for my good, oh my God, all that I have done for this people." Right? And because he is trying to do the right thing.
Right.
But he's being pulled in all kinds of different directions.
Even though he's not pro them, he's not like, they're not the same.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And no, so I brought out a little bit about what happened because we're trying to kind of create a framework of understanding how to view what's going on into the world.
Right.
And rather than view it by, here's what the Black community thinks. Here's what the Muslim community thinks. Here's what the Catholic community thinks. Right? Rather than looking at it like that, trying to understand ideologies that are behind things. And those ideologies cross over a lot of intersectional lines, right? And so we talked about, because Nehemiah was fighting some ideologies, and they were the enemies from outside, right? And that we're trying to, and we've been talking about that for the last couple of weeks, and basically applying that to today. There are some ideologies that started from the outside, but they have begun to infiltrate, and that ideology would be that Marxist ideology, oppressor versus oppressed, that liberation theology, that critical theory. That's an ideology. To me, at this point, it's kind of representative of kind of how this LGBTQ movement it's kind of flows from that ideology, and you see that has infiltrated a lot of churches, that mentality. There's also another enemy that is even more direct correlation and connection with what Nehemiah was facing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, there's an ideology of people that just want to get rid of the Jews,
right,
or the people of God, which
right,
does include us now. And that is best represented, that ideology is best represented in Islam today. And so 2 weeks ago, we kind of really focused on Islam and how Islam doesn't just hate America because we support Israel. Islam has been about conquering Christian nations from its inception, right? and conquering other Muslim nations too. I mean, they will conquer anyone,
Right.
but specifically, they are against the things of God, and so I wanted to make sure we at least talk about things that happen in today's world, and understanding the ideologies behind them. And it does tie in with what Nehemiah in chapter 5, the first part of chapter 5 is Nehemiah. Chapter 4 ends with Nehemiah having given everybody arms. He's put out guards. He is prepared to fight the enemy from outside.
Right.
Nehemiah chapter 5 begins right off the bat with squabbles within, right? And so there's always going to be battles to fight, and there's different ideologies that you have to be aware of, and so I do think it's important to address what's going on. So we take out some nuclear facilities into Iran. The basic reason for that is because there is a huge concern that if a country that has an ideology of we want to destroy and literally wipe out the nation of Israel, right? If you paid attention, one of the chants that they'll say "Death to America, death to Israel." Okay, whatever, But there's another one that says, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." Well, what is that saying? What is the landmass between the river,
right,
the Jordan River, and the sea? It's Israel. Also, Israel's flag has a blue line on the top, has their symbol in the middle, and a blue line on the bottom. What is their flag basically proclaiming? That they are the nation from the river to the sea. Because you go back into the Old Testament, and God gave his people the land from the river to the sea. So I say all that, the ideology of Iran, they are very extreme. They're not your Muslim living next to you in America.
No.
They are definitely different than that. Their goal is to eliminate Israel. If they are allowed to get a nuclear weapon, there's no reason to think that they would not use that, right?
Right.
That's the belief. You can disagree with it or not.
No, you're right, and I think I just want to add into here. So, yes, Islam has the internal belief that Islam's going to be worldwide.
Yes,
and their job is to inject Islam and take over the world Islamically. Now, contrary to that, Christian views the same thing.
Yes,
it's just how we go about it. Now, much of Islam isn't looking to do it in a violent way.
No.
They're just going in by moving into countries, the reproduction rates higher, getting involved in government, and changing it from the inside out.
Yes.
Now, do I agree with it? No, but I respect the way they're doing it. Like, hey, that's your belief. I have my belief. You know what I'm saying? But then you're saying there is this Islamic ideology out there that's even worse. And talking about Iran, I mean, has to do with the Ayatollah back to 1979.
Yes.
And the point of nuclear weapons and their strikes against Israel. And today, you mentioned it, there's this anti-Semitic view that's against Jews, pro-Islam, or Iran in this context. But there's something I don't think we're not talking about. So they have this, but now what they're doing is they're helping Palestine, essentially, to help wipe out Israel.
Yeah.
Well, Iran is Shia. Palestine and even Hamas and those are Sunni. So now here's two different sects and Iran is helping them to wipe out Israel. And someone could go, oh, okay, at least they're both Islam. Well, okay, then put it in this context, and which makes it also anti-U.S. because we're helping Israel. What about right next door is a country called Iraq, all right, Sunni nation. And when ISIS was rising up and the U.S. came in and did our attack on Iraq, where were they? They weren't helping those Sunnis out.
Yeah, no.
What was going on in Afghanistan, which is a Sunni nation here, and the Taliban is Sunni. Here's the U.S. in there fighting against the Taliban. Well, where was Iran helping the Sunnis over there against the U.S.?
Yeah.
They weren't. because they're not the pro-Sunni, they're the anti-Israel problem.
Yes.
That's where all this is stemming from.
Yes.
So to say, oh, I am pro-Iran, anti-Israel, because, oh, they're just trying to help the Sunnis, and like, why didn't they help anybody else? Because they're targeting, their mentality is to get rid of Israel, period, end of story. They don't care about the other countries right now. They'll do whatever just to destroy that country. And that's what we're not talking about in that context. So in Israel, yes, do they have nuclear capabilities? Yeah, they do. Iran, yeah, but Iran's is used primarily, there's a defensive posture to it in case something happens from outlying countries like other Sunni nations that they could go to war with. But it is a destruction effort to Israel.
Yes.
Israel's isn't a destruction effort, it's a defense effort. Because if you kind of look at it, Israel hasn't trying to conquer the entire Middle East. They just want to be leave us alone.
Yeah.
Now, we talked about, Israel has gone outside of their borders, West Bank and the Gaza Strip. They've taken more than that than they should have taken. Will not argue that whatsoever. That's a Palestinian-Israeli conflict. But when you start talking nukes, when you start having the defenses going up, all the proxies that Iran's using to destroy Israel, it's not about the Sunni nation. It's not even about Palestine. It's not about Islam. It's just about destroying Israel is where it comes from. So that's where we're seeing some of this. I think what you're saying is some of this anti-Semitism. We're not seeing the full picture, what's going on. And then we get anti-Semitic. And that's dangerous. That's wrong.
It's very dangerous. And that was why I was bringing this up. We need to have these types of conversations. Right. I don't like the fact that we had to do a military strike on Iran. I understand why we did, right? And I agree with that. Hey, that needs to be done, right? And I'd rather it be done that way than all out war. And hopefully, I'm praying that we'll be able to see some sort of resolution from now on. It as of the time that we're talking, there hasn't been a major blowback yet, but it is vital for us to have these conversations and understand that ideology, because like you said, it's not, I mean, Israel has Muslims serving in its parliament, right? So clearly we're talking about a different ideology that is represented in Iran. And it actually, they are radical extremists in their eschatology, their end times view. They actually believe that they can hasten the return of the Messiah. Right now, they don't believe it's not the same as us completely. But
no.
But they believe that they can basically hasten the apocalypse, if you will, which will lead to Muslim control of the world. I think that's a safe, really quick.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And in a simplistic form.
And it's very simplistic. But they believe that they can do that, which is why they want to get a nuclear weapon, right? So my big concern, we can have debates on all of this, and you can say, well, yeah, even if that's true, the United States should stay out of it. Okay, right. Make that case. That's fine. That I would push back, but okay.
No, okay. You got that view. Then this little Palestinian-Israeli conflict, then Iran should stay out.
Exactly. No, I agree. And
fine.
Everybody stay out, and that's your view. What I saw, and I'm seeing from Christians, why we're having this conversation, and why I even brought it up on a Sunday morning, right, is because I'm seeing people who claim to be Christians, and some are pastors. In fact, there is a growing movement, if you will, within this that does not see the current state of Israel as connected really in any real way with the Old Testament Israel. And this is overly simplistic, I know, but basically are sick of war, which I get all of that. It's very complicated. It's messy. I have a tendency to say, let's just let everybody handle it over there. We have enough problems on our own. I'm sympathetic to that view. However, where I think it's going very dangerous is basically making the case that the only reason that these other countries, for example, Iran, the only reason that they're antagonistic to us as the United States is because we support Israel. That is ludicrous.
No, you are right. And so
that becomes anti-Semitic, right?
Yeah,
because it leads that road. And I am seeing lots of people posting things after this thing that were overtly saying, well, it's obviously the American government is under the control and influence of the nation of Israel.
Right.
Okay, that's a very dangerous road to go down. You better be really careful with that. Now, because, and again, great lies and deception have some truth. Did what we did to Iran, did it help the nation of Israel? Yes, it did. So you can easily try to make this, jump. Well, then that means Israel asked us to do it and forced our hand to do it. Okay, you need to show me that. I don't see
it that way.
No, I don't either.
No.
I see it as we recognize this is in our interest, and yes, it's in Israel's interest, which we take seriously. But they're not in charge of us. There are a lot of people that immediately, when we drop those bombs, that they are now starting to say that, Trump is under the influence of Netanyahu. Israel's getting us into another war. These are open statements that are being said by people who claim to be Christians as well.
Right.
It's not a far leap between that becoming, well, we just need to get rid of this problem group of people, which happens to be between the river and the sea.
Right.
Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense.
And why it's important, I think we do talk about this.
No, we need to talk about it. Yeah, we definitely need to talk about it. A point you made, on the retaliatory part. So, we're striking, our engagement with Israel caused an Iranian thing, and what they'll do is they'll target you, because I've been there. They'll target all U.S. forces and military bases,
all around
everything that's U.S., especially in Iraq and Syria, because we're all over the place. So interesting. Our involvement over there has to do with ISIS, which is Sunni, and we're trying to get rid of the ISIS, not Sunni religion, or Sunni belief, but ISIS. So these countries can rule themselves with governments and control ISIS. So we're taking out what Iran doesn't like anyways,
right.
But yet they'll go attack us when we're attacking what they don't like anyways. And so it comes right back to Iran is doing things that they think it's going to threaten us. All it's going to do is piss us off even more at the end of the day. So their logic isn't behind it. And to support Iran when they're going and killing Americans that are killing ISIS, or getting rid of ISIS, it's it doesn't make sense to follow that. And one other thing, so I know a lot of people like, well, U.S. interests and all these other things. Personally, I don't care. Being over there, and what I've done and what I do militarily. If you don't, I do things militarily over there. But most of us over there don't care. Yeah. Like they'll go, well, this is about oil. It's about money. And it's about this. Like, you know what? I could care less about the oil. I can care less about the money. But here's the problem. What I hate is when you have a people killing other people that don't deserve to be killed. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yes.
So
no matter who it is.
No matter who it is. So I'll put it in this context. So so going to Iraq and going to the Syrias and going against ISIS and the things they do to women and the rape rooms, I've seen them, underground rape rooms, just killing their own people. When Obama was in and he's like, okay, the war is over. And I was over there talking to some Iraqis in their intel community, and we'll go deep into the whole piece, but we were talking about numbers. And in that 4-year period of time, I think in one province, 58,000 Iraqi citizens, non-military, were killed by ISIS. But we turned our head. Under Obama, nothing's going on. No, there's something going on and destroying Iraqi people. Now, I'm not Islamic, but those people are still people.
Yes.
And I want to go back over and let's stop whoever the people are that are killing people. If you take this into Palestine and Palestinians are running around killing their own people, throw me in there as I'm going to take out the bad guys. Yeah. It's not about the Islamic aspect. Israel was killing its own people in Israel.
Right.
Send me over there,
Yeah.
and I'm going to take care of the people who are killing the innocent people.
Yes.
Because this does come down to an innocence, and they're using
Yes.
people. People go, well, the U.S. has killed innocent people. In targeting, that's a casualty war. It's going to happen. We're not targeting innocent people.
Right. Yeah.
Iran targets innocent people.
Yes.
Hamas targets innocent people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Targets innocent people. Yes.
ISIS does. Israel is not targeting innocent people. They're using hospitals and all these other things. Yes, innocent people do get killed because they're hiding behind them.
Yeah.
And they know that, like us in Israel, are going to try to stay within that concept of not killing innocent people.
Yeah.
Like, don't take out a hospital, don't take out a mosque, don't do these things. And we massively try to avoid that.
Yeah.
But sometimes it happens.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest, it happens. So when you're looking at it from the perspective of anti-Israel, this isn't an anti-Israel. It's not an Israel thing. This is an Islamic thing that Iran is doing, targeting to wipe an entire nation off the planet.
Right.
Get rid of all the people over a land dispute is what it boils down to.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where you're going, what you're saying, and I understood it as, is we're seeing this through the wrong lens. And unfortunately, if you're 35 and older and you're out there in this protest group against what's going on, you're a liar.
Yeah.
You're an idiot. And the reason why I say this, because you can go back. You supported Obama. You supported Hillary Clinton on the exact same things they stood for, whether it had been the border security thing or what was happening over there. They were saying the exact same things that Trump's saying isn't actually doing.
Yeah.
Back then it was okay. Now so that means you're lying.
Yeah.
You don't know the truth. You're lying. Now you're being to what you call ideological.
Right. Well,
and now you're idolizing somebody, whether it be an Obama or whether it be a Hillary Clinton or whether it be a Joe Biden. And there are those that idolize Trump. Sure. And I'm against the idolization of anybody because he does things. Yeah, I voted for him. I'm like, where are you going with this?
There's a lot of cringe that
there is a lot of cringe. And I guess that makes sense.
And then again, all of this, one of the reasons I think it's important to talk about this is all spiritual battle stuff.
It is.
And we are in a time of heightened spiritual battle that people that believed one thing 10 years ago believe the complete opposite now and don't see the irony in that. That's a spiritual blindness. That's a spirit, and all of us are subject to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it really concerns me seeing that kind of hatred of Jews rising up within quote Christians. That never works out well throughout history. And we need to be careful of that.
And I truly don't understand that at all.
No,
it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So you don't like them because they're not Jesus lovers. Right. They don't. Okay, I understand you're against their religious belief.
Yes,
but then you should have the same hate to Islam,
right?
Because they don't believe Christ is the Son of God, that He rose up from the dead, that He's our salvation.
Yeah.
But you hate this one over that. You're an idiot.
Yeah. Because I think sometimes people can overblow the fact that we need to support Israel because the Bible tells us to. Okay, I think there's some indication there, but also as you were explaining, we should support Israel because they're a group of people that at least holds freedom values, right? And their enemies just want to wipe them off of the face of the earth. Well, we should stand up for those who have enemies that want to wipe them off the face of the earth, right? And I know all of this gets really messy, but you don't have to me, just I'm not supporting Israel just because I'm a Christian and I have a certain end times view or something like that. That's not we need to really critically think, because what happens is people will dismiss that, say, oh, well, the only reason you're supporting Israel is because you think the Bible tells you to do that. And it's like, no, think of the big picture here. We have to understand the ideologies. Israel's ideology does not include nuking any other country off the face of the map. Iran's ideology includes nuking this certain piece of this country off the face of the map. That is part of its DNA, and we need to understand that. And I am seeing cracks within Christianity, that lead to some very unhealthy places.
Yeah, exactly. And to your point, so if Iran, you hate Israel, well, okay, tough guy, you're over here trying to smoke this itty bitty country with just a few people. Why aren't you trying to smoke Britain? Because that's where they got after World War I, Britain won.
Yeah.
They said, okay, Jews, you have no place. You get to have this place that we now kind of basically call Israel.
Yeah.
So that came from Britain.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, you lost the war. They were the power. Why didn't you make a statement then? But why are you chasing down Israel? Why don't you go chase down Britain for allowing this to happen? Oh, yeah, because they're part of the European Union and NATO, and that means now you are actually going against the U.S. directly and every other European. You can't do that.
No.
So let's go after the Whittle guy.
Yeah.
See, we don't look at. We're not looking at it from like, what? This doesn't even make sense.
No.
And I'm with you. I don't support everything about Israel and that. And I mean, okay, if you want to put in the spiritual side, just like, guys, wake up.
Yeah.
You're not getting the point here.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So wake up. But Islam, dudes, wake up.
Wake up.
Wake up. There's
both are blinded.
Yeah, neither one am I hating because of their view on Christianity.
Yeah, no.
It's the killing that goes behind it that is unnecessary.
Yes.
And when you're looking to eradicate an entire peoples,
yes,
I don't care who you are in that thing.
Yeah.
You know, U.S. has never, correct me if I'm wrong, I can't think, U.S. has never been in a position where we want to eradicate an entire people.
Right.
A theology? Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But this is insane. And there's no one else around to protect Israel. So if we stepped out, they'd be gone in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
What fairness is that?
Yeah.
What kind of fairness is that?
Yeah.
It's not fair.
No.
But I agree with people saying we shouldn't be involved. I'm no problem with it. But tell Iran to back off.
Right.
And let Hamas or let Palestine, let Israel, smack each other and let them deal with it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Honestly, I kind of have the same feelings behind the whole Russian-Ukraine thing. It's like, back off. Those two would have a little border war.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not my problem. I know I'm probably being very critical. Maybe I've seen and been around too much war. It's like,
yeah. And again, these are not easy answers. I mean, they're complicated situations.
But look at all the different things. Go do some research.
Yes, and be very careful of basically just saying, no, it's okay if a whole people group gets destroyed, because we have seen that. And again, that I think that still ties into similar stuff that Nehemiah is dealing with.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
It does.
And here's the reason that we have all of these problems in Nehemiah. And I thought I had it highlighted, but I don't. So basically, one of the things that Nehemiah is dealing with now is that within his group of people, right, they are taking advantage of each other, and it's causing all kinds of problems because they're being taxed by Persia. Then the people that Persia is using to collect the taxes are taking more taxes for their own betterment, right? They're hurting their own people. And Nehemiah, it ticks him off, right? And he gets angry, and he basically calls them out, and he says the reason that this has happened is because you do not fear the Lord, right? That's what we're dealing with. We live in a world and societies that we do not fear the Lord,
right?
And it causes a lot of chaos and confusion when we're not seeing truth from His perspective, which is what is true, right? And that's exactly what's going on today within the church. We've been attacked by different enemies, the enemies of different ideologies. And now we have all these strains of different ideologies that we've allowed to get in. And now we're eating each other, right? And Nehemiah is coming along and saying, hey, morons, go back to your roots. Fear the Lord and Him alone. Right. Get all these other ideologies out of here.
Right.
Right. And so that's what he's trying to do and accomplish here.
Right. So you would say, well, your point to this when you did the sermon and everything is one of the points you brought out, I'd say, is because there is this rise of anti-Semitism. Mm-hmm. Is that's kind of the point, like this ideology of anti-Semitism, without fully understanding where all this is coming from, that is a dangerous place to be in because you're following an ideology that it's bad.
Yeah.
I mean, is that
yes? I think that's part of it. Those are those enemies we need to be on guard against, that we need to be watching out. And I'm seeing that within our own groups
churches?
of peoples. Yeah. So we need to do what we can to push back on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it's interesting. Nehemiah does that, and he gets them to quit taking advantage of people. He even repays people, all of this stuff. And then you can kind of tell it's a moment of him examining his motives, because this is difficult stuff and it's challenging stuff, and it's very instructive for us. Once you step out into the world of, I'm actually going to truly live out my faith, I'm going to try to share the truth of who God is, who Christ is, that I am actually going to apply a biblical worldview to everything.
Right.
Which means when I read the news about the U.S. sending bombs on Iran, I'm going to apply a biblical worldview to that.
Right.
When you do that, your life gets a little bit harder, sometimes much harder. And many times in the church, we try to market by saying, hey, if you just give your life to Christ and if you just follow him, your life's going to be so much better. Yes and no, right? I mean, it's better because now you are in the truth.
Right.
And now you're going to be able to have peace and joy and hope, even in the worst circumstances. But your circumstances may get more challenging, not less, right? Yeah. And Nehemiah is really, at the end, he kind of is checking his motivations, and he tells the people, because they've been using their positions of power to gain more wealth, to take advantage of people. Nehemiah is like, hey, I'm the governor. I actually have the right to get all of this extra food and stuff. And he actually names it, right? What he's technically entitled to.
Right.
And he's like, I'm choosing not to do that. I'm not saying that he did a vow of poverty, but he was not, because he was not taking on this task in order to gain wealth or prestige for himself.
Right.
And I think he's kind of was having one of those moments of making sure he's checking his motivations.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we need to do the same thing, but especially when we start delving into all of these topics that we're talking about, trying to apply a biblical worldview, it's tough. And there's going to be a lot of people who disagree. And
yeah, I know.
But it's something that we need to do. Because as that last verse, remember for my good, oh my God, all that I have done for this people, right? God has called us to seek the good of the people, right? Which is pointing them to a salvation in him. That is what seeking their good ultimately is.
Right.
That is ultimately what Nehemiah was doing. He was seeking the physical safety by rebuilding the wall. Yes, that was part of it. But that physical safety was going to give them the ability to also grow spiritually and turn back to God.
Right.
That's all one goal that Nehemiah had. And so he's asking, Lord, remember me for my good, why I am trying to do this, and keep me on path, if you will. And I think we need to,
which is a hard path.
It's a very hard path.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I just want to add, because like it says they're not fearing the Lord. Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of people look at that and go, fear God. And there's people like that. I ain't fearing nobody. Mm-hmm. I mean, so we kind of sometimes get that concept of like, I need to be afraid of this. Yeah. But as we had studied before, that the word fear actually is not fear as we think it is, to hold him in reverence to how great and awesome and loving he actually is. That's the word fear is not our intent behind fear. No. in the Greek. It's actually saying reverence to him, mm-hmm. to like, this guy is here for us and he loves us, and that's what he's going to do. So he's not telling him be afraid of him. He's telling him put him back as number one.
Yeah.
You know, this guy's God is reverence. I mean, look up to him. He will lead us through all these things. He's going to take care of us. That's what what he's trying to tell him. Like, and when we're looking at it from the wrong perspective, we don't put God first to what he wants, hence your biblical view on things, then we start screwing it up.
Yes.
Completely screwing it up all the time because we're doing our own thing with our own thoughts, our own ideologies. Yeah. It's like, well, where's God in this right now?
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. And you're right. You know, that whole phrase, fear the Lord, it's so much more than we make it out to be. But I will say that who you fear is who you ultimately will follow. And which is why the Lord says both fear me and then do not fear. So he's right. So he is saying it's not the fear like you're thinking of, but it should be that fear that you are going to follow me no matter what, because of who I am, that I am God, creator of heaven and earth, that I have given my life for you. I've poured out my life for you. I've invited you into a new kingdom to be with me, right? So that's why we follow him.
Right.
We have to be real careful. And I think this is where we see some cracks, right? So like if you fear bankruptcy above everything else, if you fear not having financial security, what will easily start dominating your life? Money, right? And this can be in any situation. If you fear what's going on in the Middle East and you're terrified about what that's going to do and how that's going to drag us into a conflict and this, all of a sudden
you're a prepper.
You may, and you may start going down paths of says, well, we've got to do whatever we have to do to get this to stop. And you know what? These Jews, they're not going to stop. They keep wanting us to come and get involved and all this. All of a sudden, because of your fear of the situation, you now may be going down a really dangerous path. Right. So it does come back to that true healthy fear of the Lord, because that is who we need to follow, and that we are doing that for the good of people. We want the good for them too, and I want Jews and Muslims to come to a saving grace of Jesus Christ. We also live in the real world and the fallen world, and it's going to be messy, right? We can't just snap our fingers and let that happen.
Right.
So we need to be aware of what's going on. And I do think maybe it's providential that we're going through Nehemiah when all of this is starting to kind of unfold, because I think it gives us a biblical reference of understanding enemies from without, enemies from within, battling those enemies, addressing those enemies, and at the same time continuing the mission to build the wall for protection and for spiritual growth, right? I think there's a lot of connection that we have with Nehemiah.
Yeah, I think so. And I think what you just put, I'm just in a different way to elaborate, like with me and you talking, you know, we're kind of like talking against the anti-Semitic thing. We're not anti-Muslim. We're not anti-Israel. We the point, what you're kind of saying is, we're not looking for death and destruction on either one of them. Yes. What we're looking for and hoping is that, okay, well, I'll say it, they can kind of come to a peace, and then that gives more opportunity for God to work through people into them. Quit beheading everybody, to hear his word. Because if there's just all-out war, it's not going to happen. Opportunities are going to be lost. Lives are going to be lost. And that opportunity for those lives lost are not going to happen. So we're not against either one of them. We're just against being against either one of them, and in that context,
we will firmly be against the ideologies. That are behind, that are the motivating factors for what happens, and it's a tough world that we're in, and things are rapidly changing. But God's called us to this time, and I think He's called us to be like a Nehemiah, get out there and engage, and. You know, that means you may have to strap on a sword, where it's legal. But you're going to have to recognize there's lots of enemies and there's lots of ideologies, and we need to be pushing back against those to free people from that deception,
Yep.
so that they can find
That's a good way to
what
put
is
it.
true, that is found only in a new life found in Christ.
Yep, that's a good way to put it.
So, all right. Well,
there, that was good.
yeah, yeah. We'll end right there. We could keep going, and we are. We're going to keep talking about things like this. But hope you enjoyed your time today. Again, Journey at 10 o'clock on Sunday mornings. Also, Tom's going through Revelation at 6:30 on Wednesday evenings. You can watch us in our app, Journey Elgin Church. You can also watch it on YouTube or listen to it on a podcast. So thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.